should there be harsher sentences for rioters? That's what we're asking now. You can give us a call. 0207 862 2222 is the number, and we'll speak to you in just a moment. Get those calls in now. So scenes like this over the past week have prompted Sir Keir Starmer to say that he'd take swift action to deal with anyone involved in rioting and violent disorder. Hundreds of arrests have been made, and we've seen people being processed pretty quickly through the court system. These are just some of the images of the riots that we've seen over the last few days. Now, the first few offenders have been jailed with sentences so far ranging from 2 months to 3 years behind bars. And in just the past hour, 2 men have both been sentenced already to 2 years and 8 months each for violent disorder on Merseyside. Do you think this is fair? Do you think it's too harsh? Or would you like to see them banged up for a little bit longer? Owen, what's your thoughts?
I don't think prison sentences are the solution for this. Look, I don't want to belittle this. We just saw it's worse than a far-right riot. This was somewhere between an attempted pogrom, that is an attempt to, we saw an attempt to burn alive asylum seekers in a hotel. We saw...
And the mosques, right?
And the mosques.
The bins around the mosques.
The attacks on mosques. Something akin to a terrorist insurgency. That's where we were getting to. Whipped up, I would say, by so much of our media and our political elite over the years. And that's the key point, I would say. This is where I get frustrated. Look, I got beaten up by a far extremist and they went to prison for nearly 3 years and I opposed that. I put in my victim impact statement that I didn't think that was going to be a solution.
You didn't want them to go to prison?
No, because for me, this is a political problem. And, I would say, looking at those sentences, people talking about 2-tier sentences, you had Just Stop Oil activists being sent to prison between 4 and 5 years for not even doing any activity. They were plotting to take in terms of blocking a motorway.
They were blocking the M25.
But they didn't do it. That never happened. So people who are actually engaged in violent rioting have got lower sentences. What I would say is, the idea, a lot of people just think there's a judicial solution to a political problem. I don't think those far-right extremists are going to go to prison and be de-radicalised. And I want actual de-radicalisation.
So you want more rehabilitation than
rehabilitation, but it's not just that. It's dealing with the fact that for years in this country, our media and our politicians have told everyone that the real problems in society are caused by migrants and Muslims and refugees rather than the people at the top. They've become a scapegoat. That's what's radicalising people.
So
and prison sentences.
Rather than focusing on any prison sentences, you want to focus on the causes. Reem, what do you think about these prison sentences?
I've got to say, I'm glad at least you're consistent, right? Even when you were the victim, you said that you didn't want that person to go to prison, which I think is really interesting.
They still did.
They still did, but at least you were consistent in your perspective on being anti-prisons altogether. I think that, I completely disagree. I think that if you destroy property, you hurt people, you should absolutely be removed from society and be in prison.
So how do you feel about these sentences? Are they about right? Do you think they should be higher?
I think it depends on the particular crime. So again, if you're out there protesting and sort of shouting and screaming, you shouldn't necessarily go to prison at all. If you are destroying property and harming people, you're burning down mosques, attempting to burn down the Holiday Inn which house asylum seekers, then you should absolutely be going to prison for a very, very long time.
So do you hear what Owen's saying when he thinks that there's a 2-tier system when you look at the Just Stop Oil protesters organising a protest that would stop the M25 getting up to 4 years, 4 or 5 years?
I was saying, by the way, I was actually taking on the idea that far-right extremists were saying there's a 2-tier system.
Yes.
When actually, as I would just point out, that actually
it might favour on the other way.
Who weren't violent.
I think there are going to be a lot of people at home wondering why they got 4 years when these individuals who were actively committing violent criminality only got maybe 3 years.
I think that altogether there is a no-tier policing system. Ultimately, we see so many countless people that are getting away with committing horrendous crimes across the last few years, but even over the last decade. People are literally committing crimes and not getting any kind of consequence. So I've been quite impressed with the government, actually, with how quickly they've been able to get through these sentences, how quickly they rushed it through the courts. Clearly, there has been a huge political will to do so. However, this does not change the fact that policing in this country has failed. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of people that should be in prison that are not. And actually, they're already overflowing, they're already overcapacitated. How much more taxpayer money are we going to be spending on those particular individuals?
All right, let's go to the phones. Liz from Glasgow, what's your thoughts on this? Do you think those sentences are about right? Are you happy with them?
No, I think they're getting made to, just getting made an example.
Okay.
What about what's happened to the rioters, the folk that were in Manchester Airport?
Oh, the police officer when there was a sort of kick in the head situation.
And they were on bail.
Yeah,
They've been let out. They've been roaming the streets and they've.
Are we talking about the suspect? Sorry, who are we talking about here?
We're talking about the
Manchester police.
The two individuals.
Just to be clear, the lawyer did a press conference the other day and alleged that the police version of events was completely false. And
We've seen the video.
And also noted that their mother had a massive black eye.
Because the guy himself elbowed him, and we've seen the video. We know
I don't want to get distracted onto this event, okay? But Liz, I mean, you're getting focused on two individuals as opposed to hundreds of individuals we've seen rioting on our streets.
Yeah, but the guy yesterday got arrested for punching a policeman. That guy actually broke a policewoman's nose, and also the old woman that got knocked over, that was actually her son that knocked him over, if that girl watches it.
I don't want to get caught up in the CCTV and our own interpretations of that, because we'll just let the judicial system deal with that as they will. But Liz, if we're going to compare it then to Just Stop Oil, for example, who got up to 4 years in prison for organising a protest or potentially organising a protest which was going to block the M25, in comparison to what we see in these riots, and they're only getting 3 years. Again, that doesn't seem very fair, does it?
No, it's not fair, no. Because there's been plenty of folk over the years been rioting and they haven't been arrested.
Who's been rioting, Liz? Because in the last riots in 2011, you had people sent to prison, lengthy prison sentences for stealing bottles of water. Do you not remember that in 2011? So who's been rioting, and where did they not get proper?
I think they've been made an example of. They're trying to.
You said other people have been rioting. Who do you mean? Just to ask, who do you mean?
No, I'm just thinking of other folk that have been rioting.
Who? Which ones?
Just folk that have been rioting.
That's not an answer, Liz. Sorry.
I don't think.
I know it's not an answer, but
it isn't. No, I know.
I think, Liz, what Owen's getting to is there haven't been riots like this since 2011, when we saw the riots taking place across London.
And the point about punching a police officer in the context of being a rioter, that was the point. You're taking part basically in an uprising. That's what was going on. This wasn't actually just a riot. I think riot belittles it. It was basically an uprising.
It's an insurgency.
It's an insurgency. It was a reign of terror on the streets where they were trying to make people of colour feel terrified to leave their own homes, and not just leave their own homes. Windows were being smashed by people chanting, "There is no black in the Union Jack." This was a reign of terror, and people of colour in this country, if you speak to friends, I'm sure you have people affected, are terrified. Yeah. And that's the point. We cannot have a reign of terror, a tyranny on our streets in which many of our citizens no longer feel they are free. That's what we had in this country.
I've got to say, I think there are two elements. I think Owen's absolutely right. I mean, we have to condemn the riots in the strongest terms because of how incredibly horrendous they've actually been acting in the first place. However, there are very many people in this country that are concerned about incredibly high levels of immigration, and we should take those concerns seriously. And actually, I think from that perspective, and I don't necessarily agree with it, but if we're talking about the right to democracy, the idea that actually the will of the people should be executed by the government, every single poll shows that people in this country, the majority of people in this country, feel as though immigration is too high, that it's a problem.
We have to separate.
I'm going to have to bring you both to a close now because the show is finishing, but there are 400 people roughly being arrested, 100 charged. We'll see what the sentences are like as time goes on.